Thank you, Wim, for the really kind introduction. And I think you've already touched upon quite a few points that I would like to highlight.
What I will do is, first of all, take a step back. And I would like to share with you my thinking around why this is so important that we get this thing right.
I think it's pretty obvious, and we have seen this today, how dramatically our environment will evolve. And if we now put it up to the European perspective, and we've heard that we're lacking behind, it's up to us to ensure that we're seizing the opportunity and that we're ensuring that Europe, in particular the financial markets, are becoming future-proof for the fourth industrial revolution. And I think we've heard that it will change the way we work, it will change the way things are produced, the way we live. And if I look at, or just imagine, how the global economy looks like once technologies like blockchain, artificial intelligence, 3D printing, once they have really reached their full potential, the world will look completely different, and it will be of high importance that Europe stays ahead of these developments. And that means, and this is actually a call to the regulators on the one hand, but it's also a call to all of us who are part of the ecosystem. So what I would like to do in the next couple of minutes is, in addition to sharing my thinking around Europe and what needs to be done, to explain to you why I believe that Deutsche Börse Group, as a financial market infrastructure, an exchange is just a tiny part at the beginning of the value chain, why we have a dual role in this regard and how we intend to fulfill it. So what we see is that the European Commission and all the European institutions are working on the regulatory framework. They're really trying to get their head around how can we ultimately deliver the capital market union. And the reason for the capital market union is the fact, and Olivier Garçon has referred to that, we are really still dependent on bank financing. But it's important to keep in mind that we need basically two legs to stand on. So there is the need to ensure bank financing, but at the same time, we have to get out of the trap in developing equity markets in Europe. So if you look at the CMU and how the Commission put it, I feel that they see fintech as an enabler to thrive, for a capital market union to thrive, for broader and deeper capital markets. And I think that's true. What will they do, not only in case of banks, but also in terms of financial market infrastructures, as we are one, is they will help overcoming barriers, and there are quite a few left in the EU. They will foster standardization. And of course, they will challenge the existing business models. Ultimately, if all that works together, we should be reaching the next level of capital markets and the next level of banking and financial market infrastructure in Europe. And there was another important aspect, I think, mentioned. That was in Cora's intervention. That was about how does robo-advice help getting to the capital market union, and how can robo-advice as a complementary measure. And if you look at it, regulators have just put out the proposal of the PEP, the Pan-European Pension Products, and that's one way to tackle the, I would call it a ticking pension time bomb that we somehow have in Europe. And that's one way how to tackle it. But if you look at the PEP, it will really take a long way to really get to the results that we need. So if you now take a complementary step to it, and you add the capabilities of robo-advice next to it, you can basically just imagine how powerful robo-advice could be in terms of financial inclusion, rather democratizing wealth in that sense, and in terms of financial literacy. So there is, I think, a lot in ensuring that regulation and technological advancements really fit together, and really to understand them as complementary. I think if I now turn to more the financial market infrastructure side of things. So who are we? Basically, we provide the full set of the value chain, from trading, clearing, settlement, custody, data services we have. And I can truly say that from a DNA perspective, we're actually a genuine IT company. And I can assure you that our CIO is in the cloud. So that's what we do, because we believe we're an IT company. So coming to the two roles that we have, one of them is basically that we use our expertise in developing markets, in developing ecosystems, to support developing the ecosystem for financing of growth and innovative companies, and that goes far beyond fintech. The second role that we have, and that's to the reference to our DNA, and when you've just chosen my favorite example, we have shown that we can disrupt ourselves. Because at the time, and I think that's in the 90s, when we saw the really big and challenging move from fraud trading to going fully electronic. And we have seen since then a lot of further technological advancements. So coming back to the ecosystem, why is that so important for us, and why do we think it is our task? I think servicing the financing needs of companies is the raison d'être of capital markets. To be really clear, that's what we are here for. And this is, if I look at what we see right now in Europe, and that doesn't fit to each other. What we see is basically net number in IPOs going down. And what we also see is the intense discussion around growth in startup companies and SMEs on how can they ensure that they can access finance. So obviously, when we think about it, there seems to be a mismatch between what we want to achieve and what is already available to those who need financing. And we have created our own answer to that. It's somehow, we've had that before, somehow a dating platform, put it that way. It's called the Deutsche Boerse Venture Network. We have set that up in April 2015. And what it's all about is creating an ecosystem where those who need the financing can meet those who can provide the financing. It's basically the classical task of an exchange to match demand and supply. And obviously, there are a lot of things around it to make this thing work. You know, you can't just put companies on display and let them meet some investors. Obviously, you can support them in training and giving them education and so on and so forth. But what came out of it is the idea was, we started as a company in the trading space, and we thought what was missing was the space before. So usually, those companies who seek financing would, once they are already really mature and are ready for an IPO on an exchange, on a classical market, are ready. And the intention was to say, no, honestly, the problem that Europe is facing is not the big companies, it's facing the small ones. So this is what we're addressing here. And I'm pretty proud to say that within 2 years, we were capable of generating over $1 billion in capital and funding through several funding rounds. We have seen out of the venture platform 3 IPOs coming. We have also seen other exits, of course. And to be clear, the intention is not that any company that wants financing needs to end up on an exchange. That's not the purpose. The purpose of this is to ensure that growth companies at any stage, and depending on their needs, get the financing type that they want and that they ultimately can choose between different options when they opt out of it. In addition to that, and I'll not elaborate on that, of course, we operate an own fintech center in Frankfurt, and we're building up one right now in Berlin. So we're making sure that we're also supporting the community in itself. If I now come and switch the perspective, so that's the role of the ecosystem, and I think that's an important part there where we have to take the responsibility as organizers of markets. But on the other hand, and this is the second question is the business opportunity side for us. And this is about what will all the technological development do to us? How can we react to it? And how can we create opportunity out of it for our company? And we have, again, several ways how to do it. Of course, we have internal research and development teams. We have our own corporate venture arm that invests in startup to growth companies that are core or adjacent to our business and really supports them while we are invested. Again, not only providing the money, but standing ready to provide expertise. And there is a particular interesting field, and I don't think we have heard so much today about it, so I'll skip another example and take this one. Blockchain. If you look at blockchain, what we have done is we have said, okay, what is this technology capable of? And how does our existing business model look like? So what we do is we look across the complete value chain and look for use cases where it can adapt us to the next level. And I think the beauty of it for us is that we're capable of combining the advantages that this technology can provide to us with the fact that we are a trusted, secure, fully regulated company. And that helps to develop something in an existing regulatory framework while driving technological innovation. And that's the way we go ahead. And there are several, we have a dedicated team that has been working on it for more than 2 years. They've come up as use cases, first prototypes are delivered. And when we look at blockchain, there's always the question first, what type of problem do we want to solve? And I give you just one example. We all know how regulation has increased the burden. Every bank knows that in terms of collateral that needs to be available. So if I think of collateral scarcity, the point is, how can I ensure that the right level or the right amount or right level of collateral is in the right place in the right time? And there are obviously cross-border issues that need to be solved. And the way that we are looking at is taking the existing infrastructure that we have, which is the CSD side of things, and joining forces in the liquidity alliance with CSDs around the globe to develop something that we can deliver cross-border. And this is how a use case for us in the regulated environment that we're in is going to work. Other things are, and I'll not elaborate on this one in terms of timing, are obviously in the RegTech space. I mean, if you look at the regulation that is going to kick in January, our favorite MiFID II, MiFIR, any other regulation that have so many reporting requirements in there, it is actually core, again, to our business to deliver on that for our customers and for regulators at the same time. And again, this is an example where we have been building the regulatory reporting hub, and we are actually making use of the expertise of one of the companies that our corporate venture arm has invested in. So we make sure that we connect the efforts that we have in the company. I think one final remark, because I could, add a long list of examples on how we would do it. But I'd really like to stress for us it's important that if Europe wants to deliver, we need to ensure we have a relevant ecosystem. At the same time, we have a task as a company ourselves to cope and to take advantage of the innovation that's out there for us. But ultimately, if you look at what Brussels is doing now, and we have heard Cora and we have heard Olivier, so there's something to come. And I think, keep our fingers crossed, it's supposed to be really good. I mean, that's what he promised to us, right? So, but we need to keep in mind one thing. Even as bad as this, or as good or as bad as this regulation can get, regulation in itself doesn't deliver any growth for Europe. It's market-led initiatives, and it's the industry, that's us here, that need to deliver and fill it with lifeblood.